And so now here we are back in our studio with our MIDI project that we created last week, and we are going to add an original drum pattern. We tried putting a loop in there and it just didn't sound right. And one thing with loops is that if you don't like it, it's too bad, you're stuck with it. So let's program our own drum pattern that is more in line with the mood of this piece of music. And you can either add a new track here, or you can just simply go right here. You see this pattern beats maker in the middle. I'm just going to click that. And then up comes this what's called drum machine step sequencer. And right here you see is measure 5, and it has 4 beats. 1, 2, 3, and 4. There would be measure 6, and if I can scroll to the right with this, and I can see there's measure 15. Music starts at measure 5, and right now I have just one measure highlighted in cycle mode. So now I'm going to turn on my metronome so I see this in time. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So quarter notes would basically be where you hear the click. Eighth notes would be having 8 of these every other block. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and then 16th notes, if I highlighted every single block, would sound like this. A 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E. So I can manually program into the step sequencer by simply clicking which blocks that I want it to play. And I could just randomly select some stuff. Right now you're hearing on the top line the kick. I could change that. Here's the snare. I could change that. Here's the hi-hat. I could change that. I can add parts. Okay, but I am going to actually not use this step sequencer at all and play in my pattern because I know exactly what I want to do. If you're a little less confident playing a beat, you're more than welcome to use this step sequencer. But I'm going to go up here to instrument, click this option, and here's the actual instrument. And just like the piano, it has little QWERTY keyboard keys on there telling me, like, if I press A, I will actually hear the kick. If I press D, I will hear the snare drum. Right? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually hit record, and I'm going to play in my pattern to the song because I kind of have in my head what I want to have happen. I could certainly do it with the step sequencer, but I want to try something different. So let me turn off cycle mode first of all, make sure my playhead is in the right starting spot. And now next I just want to come down here, make sure the metronome's on so I hear the click. And now when I record, I'm just going to record the kick and snare, and then I'll use the step sequencer later and add the hi-hat. Alright, so let's try this. Hit record. And voila! One thing that I want to do is I want to quantize this. So if I go back to patterns and see if I can add that hi-hat in the step sequencer, it'll say can't read because the regions contain unquantized notes. In other words, the notes aren't perfectly in time. quantizing basically makes sure every note is exactly on the grid to the nearest 100th of a second rhythmically. So I could do this two ways. I could click quantize right here, or I could go to the piano roll, select all these notes, and then go edit, quantize. And now I need to make sure that I know what my nearest subdivision is. It's most likely going to be either an 8th note or a 16th note. I'm going to hit 16th note, and hopefully I'm in time. Let's take a listen. Okay, so when I played that beat, it was not in time, but I could see visually that it was in time. So I just closed the program, reopened it, and now it sounds fine. Alright, so now I am going to double click this, and up comes that step sequencer, and I'm just going to click in my hi-hat part here and just put on quarter notes the whole time. Okay, so I've just manually put in quarter notes, and let's listen to that. And as I go, maybe I hear something like right measure 8, I want to add a little tit tit tit. And I can change the beat. I'm not stuck with it. I can add little embellishments as I go. I can add other parts. Okay, so I got my hi-hat, and I could add some other things. And so that's how the step sequencer works. Really straightforward. And close it out, look at the bigger picture, and now I pretty much got a nice chorus or a section to a really beautiful song. It sounded like a really beautiful song. Now say for example I didn't like this drum machine, I can always change the sound. It's not going to change the work that I did, I'm just going to change the sound. So it has drum machines, processed. So let's have this 70s kit. What does this sound like? And now one thing I can do, I can actually audition these. Sometimes it takes a lot on the processor to do this, but let's see if we can change sounds in real time as the music is playing. Ooh, I like that one. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to add like a little drum fill right before the music comes in. I've got it set up to start on measure 5. And like I don't know if I said this before, but I don't want to start at the very beginning of the session. I always want to leave space here just in case I decide to add something before it. I don't have to deal with moving around. Plus, you run the risk of cutting stuff off. So it's always kind of safer to just have some empty space at the beginning of the session. So in this case, I have measure 4. I'm going to just draw in a little drum fill before the guitar and piano come in. So to do this, I'm going to turn on cycle mode so it plays these 4 beats over and over, and I just sort of draw stuff in. Okay, I drew something in real quick, and there's a saying, simplicity sells. So this is a very basic, simple fill. All right, so let's hear it. Cool, now I have my intro. So now just to finish this up and have it ready to be turned in, I have to add an automated fade here at the end. So I'm just going to draw that in like I did with my podcast, put some dots in here, and just let it fade on out. So you may have noticed when I write in these fades, I do kind of an S curve, and this is what we call a logarithmic curve, as opposed to the last one I did where it was loud and then suddenly got softer. They're both S curves. One's curving this way, one's curving that way. This is an X. The one I did in the podcast was an exponential curve. This is a logarithmic curve. And it just, I tend to like these types of curves a little bit more. They feel a little bit more natural. So it kind of straightens out towards the end. So it's a little gentler on the ear, I think. A little bit closer to what you would hear with a actual pop song. So again, if it was a straight line, it would just be linear. If it curved like in the podcast where it faded out at the end, that would be exponential curve. And this is a logarithmic curve. The terms aren't important. I just want to explain what it is I'm doing here. And now I've got to save it. Close these up so it looks nice and pretty. And I am going to export my song. And you're done. Export the studio. And by the way, you can download right here. I prefer to do it on my accounts page just to make sure everything's saved. And sometimes if you just finished a session, it'll say mixing here, so you can't download until it's done processing. So you can click there to download, or you can click over here and you can make a WAV file or MP3. So there you have it. Now you know how to use the piano roll editor, create software instruments, and program drums using a step sequencer. Now, there are some really cool chord progressions in that MIDI folder. So please have fun, be creative. If you have a more sophisticated DAW like GarageBand, Logic, Ableton, feel free to import those same MIDI files and mix it up with your own ideas. I hope you enjoyed this video, and thanks for watching.